You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
There is a story that was published today on Modern Farmer that is making the rounds, and it's angering a lot of activists in the marijuana community, and unfortunately, I wish it didn't. I wish they had more my attitude toward it, which is, it's about damn time we debunked some of our own BS. And, you know, this is something that I think is really important in the movement, is that when we come forth with the arguments that are going to get, first of all, marijuana legalized and get hemp legalized. But second of all, arguments that are easily defensible, arguments that are not pie in the sky dreamer type of arguments here. And in the world of hemp, some of these arguments exist. Now, let me start with his article and we'll talk a little bit about it. His article is called Why Legalized Hemp Will Not Be a Miracle Crop. It's by Dan Mitchell, writing in Modern Farmer, modernfarmer.com. And he opens with this. There has never been a good reason for the ban on industrial hemp. It's no more harmful than industrial switchgrass or industrial lumber for that matter. But at the same time, the claims of hemp activists are often overblown. And right there in the opening paragraph, I think that sets the perfect tone, because for me, the whole argument about hemp begins and ends with the fact that it's a crop, not a drug. There's no good reason to ban it. Now, if indeed hemp is this wonderful fuel and food and fiber, which we all know it is, right? But even if it weren't, there's no good reason to ban it. And I worry about, cementing our arguments onto some of these wild claims that are sometimes taken out of context and sometimes overblown, because then the argument and the debate becomes not about whether it's stupid to ban a crop. The argument becomes about whether or not our claims were true. And it doesn't matter whether our claims are true with respect to hemp. It matters whether or not it makes any sense to ban it as a crop. Let's not get distracted by all of the wild claims. Now, these wild claims that are listed, some of these are listed in this Modern Farmer article, and let me get to some of it here. It says, it seems likely that a thriving hemp market will finally develop here, but thriving doesn't mean huge. Not by a long shot. Worldwide, only about 200,000 acres of land were devoted to hemp cultivation in 2011, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, with that number being flat to decreasing in recent years in the 30 countries where hemp is cultivated. 200,000 acres in the entire world devoted to hemp, even though hemp is legal in 30 countries. China has legal hemp, but worldwide, 200,000 acres. Meanwhile, in North Dakota alone, flax was harvested from more than 315,000 acres. So, there's more flax grown in North Dakota than hemp grown in the entire world. And, for further perspective, they say, consider that corn is planted on 85 million acres in the United States. Now, that's not necessarily a good stat, I think, because that tells us more about how much we're addicted to corn syrup than, anything about whether we should be planting that much corn. But this addresses something that I've always wondered about the hemp argument. And that is, if it's everything that hemp proponents say that it is, why isn't China taking advantage of all of that? And oftentimes the response gets us into the land of conspiracy theories. And, well, the oil companies don't want the competition and the plastics don't want the competition. But if there's one thing that I believe about oil companies is that they will make a buck wherever they can make a buck. In fact, oil companies have been pretty highly invested in solar and wind and other forms of alternative energy as well. It's a whole lot easier for them to buy up and dominate a market that might be a competitor than it would be to try to go through a big political scheme to ban it. If hemp is capable of producing as much energy as we believe it can, energy companies should be all over that. But there's other problems. There's other obstacles that are in the way. Obstacles that will go away once we get it legalized. But to say that suddenly legalizing it will miraculously create all these things without addressing the context in which it has to happen. For example, we often talk about how hemp can produce biodiesel, which is absolutely true. And when I talk about it, I like to point out how any diesel engine could run on hemp seed oil, which is also true. But I always limit my remarks to having the U.S. Tractor trailer trucks using diesel, using the biodiesel. Because I know it's not realistic to think that every car in America is going to give up gasoline and suddenly become a biodiesel car. That's just, it's great that it'll run on diesel, but not everybody's driving a diesel car. How are we going to get diesel cars in everyone's hands? And arguments about the paper. This is another classic argument that we've heard many times in the marijuana movement is 1 acre of hemp is equal to 4 acres of trees for paper. Which is true, but it ignores the context of 1 acre of hemp planted on prime farmland and irrigated is equal to 4 acres of trees that can grow places that are not prime farmland and don't require irrigation. And it also ignores the processing costs and other factors that currently make wood pulp paper far cheaper and easier to make than hemp paper. And again, if hemp paper were going to be the solution to everything, why isn't Canada printing all their stuff on hemp paper right now? Why isn't China? Why aren't kids into, and the argument goes for hemp can make such great foodstuffs. Absolutely true. The hemp seed is a very digestible food protein. So why aren't Chinese kids growing up eating a lot of hemp gruel? But this is the thing is I know that marijuana being illegal and America banning hemp has some effect on this demand in this marketplace, but it can't have such an overarching effect that companies in Europe that might want to make a buck off of hemp, if all the things we said about hemp were true, they'd be growing it like crazy in Belgium and in France and all these places where they could make a buck on it. That's the problem I have with this hemp can save the planet argumentation, is it lends to our opponents the ability to kind of paint us as these starry-eyed, unrealistic dreamers, when the argument doesn't need to be any more sophisticated than it's not a drug. That's all we need to say. It's not a drug. There's no point in banning hemp. We're going to take this an hour or two. We'll talk more about this article because I've seen a lot of people respond to it and gotten very angry about it. And I think they're missing the forest for the trees. I think sometimes on our side we have this knee-jerk reaction because we've dealt with so much reefer madness from prohibitionists and cops for so many years that we fail to see our own shortcomings and hyperbole and vigorously defend them like we were attacking reefer madness. Let's get our own house in order. Let's make sure our own arguments are unassailable. That's all the time we got for Hour 1. Stay tuned for Hour 2. For Brian the Red, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it,